Hey, general contractors, this is Kevin Sterling with the Topping Off podcast, and we are here for our first ever episode with Jesse and Art Chiusano of Chiusano Design Build based in Poughkeepsie, New York. So welcome, Jesse and Art. First off, we would love to just hear a little bit about your business, how long you've been in business, if you're willing to share like your approximate revenue, where you're at. Do you have employees, services you're offering, and kind of your market?
You want to start it off, Art?
Yeah, sure. So we do general contracting, interior remodels and decks. We've been in business. We're going into our fourth year with our LLC. Jesse and I are cousins and 50-50 partners. Basically been that way our whole life, no matter what, whatever the activity. We did this year about $250K in sales. Well, we're still in December. We got some big things in the works. It's our best year yet, and 2026 is looking a bit better. We have quite a bit of work in place. I think a lot of it is thanks to your help, GC Sherpa help. You guys have really opened a lot of doors. I think, definitely there's been a change in these past however many months we've been having your guys' help. We enjoy the work, and we're just trying to continue to grow. We mainly focus on kitchens, bathrooms, and niche carpentry, site milled woodworking, and the tile work, things like that.
Yeah, so to build off what I was saying, so we've been in business for just about 4 years, and it's just been him and I for the most part, with a helper here or there. And it's been good, but we know that we can kind of build on the foundation that we have, especially with the help of Kevin here. He's been helping us a lot more than we thought initially, I'll be honest. But he's definitely put our faith back into like the whole marketing side of things, and I just hope it'll continue. He's been a huge help for us and our business.
Thanks, guys. Totally appreciate that. And to dig a little deeper, how did you get into general contracting in general?
So,
you go, Jess.
So, Arthur and I know he could probably agree with this. He grew up in a house where your dad was always doing stuff with his hands, always doing projects, always doing this, doing that. And, you start off very young, being the helper, the flashlight holder, and kind of just, it just progresses. So I know for me, a lot of it started just from helping my dad, just learning the ins and outs and, small house repair stuff, very minimal, nothing like what we're doing now, but and it's kind of just snowballed. I started building during COVID. Actually, I started building furniture, and that was kind of like the first big like stepping stone into where we are now, and it kind of just evolved, and I love it. I enjoy it a lot.
Yeah, and I'll say it's funny because me and Jesse, we both have like pictures with our dads where we both have little toy tool belts on, and we're like, I know the one with him is like him and his dad are like shingling a roof or something. And I have one just sitting with my dad, and he's got his work clothes on. I have my little tool belt on. You just start to get like an interest in it, and it's always kind of been something that we've, like, me and Jesse started off working with my dad a lot. As we got older, he had a he was kind of a freelance carpenter and did a lot of renovation work and maintenance type work. And me and Jesse did a lot of work in mobile homes. So we'd be like, crawling around trying to fix leaks and burst pipes and stuff under mobile homes, or a tenant moves out and you're just trying to flip one of them, get a new tenant in, and you just we have stories forever about that stuff. But that's where we kind of like developed. I don't know. You just start to like to be a problem solver, and you like the art.
Mm-hmm.
And
like the appreciation for it, like you start to like appreciate like what goes into that type of stuff,
Yeah, exactly. And then just same thing. Just after COVID, first couple of years after COVID or whatever, I started to do sort of night and weekend projects for people. Just kind of fell into it. One of our big first clients was a landlord of mine who kind of gave us a shot and really just about filled our first year of work. And it was some residential and some commercial. So we got a really broad crash course. And we're still learning every day, and I'm sure we'll be learning forever. But, it just took a couple people giving us a shot. And then me and Jesse were talking, the end of 22, I guess it was.
Yeah.
We're like, dude, let's do it. We're going to quit our jobs on this day, our day job. Jesse was doing his furniture thing. I was like working at a hardware store.
Yeah. Yep.
And we were like, man, it's going to be a lot. We're doing these jobs now and then and making better money, but it's also just so much more gratifying. And we were like, let's take a risk. Let's just try it. And here we are. And we're beginning to turn the corner where I'm like, okay, I don't think we're just getting lucky anymore. I think we're sort of developing some sort of formula that seems to be working. We do good work, and you start to layer kind of successes on top of each other. And we've had failures too, but we've been learning the whole time.
I don't think the failures for any of us ever end, but as long as they're tied to the lessons, that's a huge part of it.
Yep.
Awesome. We've got to get those tool belt photos on the website. I think that'll be fantastic. You got to send me
I
those.
could definitely. I have mine pretty close by. Actually, it's on my fridge, so
Nice.
so I could easily get that for you.
We talked a little bit about the kind of gratification of the work that you're doing. Who would you say is like your ideal customer, or like is it a target market? Like who do you really love producing work for?
I'll start. That's something we've been thinking about a lot recently, and then Jesse, you pick it up after. But we heard the concept. I forget where we heard it. Maybe you were the first person we heard it, or another podcast. A shout out to what's his name,
Modern
Craftsman. We watch him a lot. The ideal client, and it's like, just people who. We definitely enjoy a young people. We like doing work for young people. We feel like it's easier for them to relate to us, and like there's a lot of the industry. There's a lot of like what I call the good old boys who kind of are just like the old timers, and that's not always a good thing. There's a lot of old timers we learn a lot from, but they tend to be less flexible, less collaborative, kind of set in their ways, which is fine. And a lot of them have successful businesses, but we do like, it's easier to relate. We can talk about Pinterest, and we can talk about, different current trends. And me and Jesse really love to try new products and new strategies and new techniques and stuff like that. Definitely we don't dislike a picky or a nitpicky customer because we want to satisfy them. But also another thing we've learned from Brian from DBS Remodel is he said there's going to be clients that you're just never going to make happy no matter what, and we try to qualify them before putting a ton of time and energy or taking the job at all. because just as much as they're looking for an ideal contractor, we're looking for that ideal client, and we don't want to have any resentment as we're doing the job, or you're stuck on a job. And again, those are some of those kind of failures or learning experiences where we're like, oh my goodness, we got to watch for this next time. We got to watch out for this red flag.
Yeah, and to kind of build off that, it's with a lot of the like newer, more modern, like there was saying, like Pinterest, you have Instagram, you have all these places where you can see different things, where you can get ideas from for what you may want in your home. And not knocking the older people, but it's much easier to articulate certain things, or something that involves technology, and just kind of make the whole process smoother. But like I was saying, like we've kind of learned from the initial meeting with most people who we meet with, we can kind of get a pretty good read on them, whether or not they're going to be an ideal or a less ideal client. Typically people who at the initial meeting tend to be very I guess picky, like in the sense of like, oh, like this has to be this way, or this has to be done that way. They don't put that trust in you like right from the get-go. You can kind of get that vibe like initially, because people will kind of feed off of what you're giving them. So if they're the ones kind of like telling you how you're gonna do it, then that's kind of
yeah,
a slight red flag. But I'll be honest, for the most part, we haven't, the majority of them have been the ideal clients. Most people who are easy to work with, know what they want, and of course the most important thing is making sure that they pay on time and pay, because we've also dealt with that where we do a great job, we do everything in our power to make sure we do right by the client, and it doesn't always work out mutually between us, so
I think you hit a lot of really interesting things. Certainly it's a partnership, so like things like payments, everything operates easier when it just flows the way that you've all agreed that it should flow. So like that's kind of a given. And then I think you really hit on, I've seen contractors fail where they position themselves as basically like the order taker, where their motto might be, well, whatever you want. It's like, well, I'm not a contractor, I'm not a design professional, I'm not an architect. So like I'm relying on your expertise to say like, hey, I know you asked for this, but there's this really cool product that just came on the market that's this, that like you'd like to offer this as an alternative. And then you become a trusted advisor, which I think feels beyond general contracting also is kind of where you want to end up, that like you're bringing expertise and the ability to execute it. So yeah, well said on many points there.
exactly.
Now I know we're working together currently in a digital marketing capacity. Do you guys use any other kind of marketing?
I'll be honest, aside from the work that you do for us and stuff online, we have I have a big sign outside my house, and that's might be the only physical in-person marketing that just anybody driving by can see, for example.
We have shirts and clothes.
Well, shirts, of course, yeah, shirts,
like And I'll say we're going to be doing our second home show in a few months.
Yep.
Which that was another big like thing that kind of propelled us. That really felt like a big turning point, was like doing that home show. So we're like, we want to do them a lot, and it's just fun too.
And exactly, and more more like what I say, boots on the ground type marketing type stuff. Because we, for the first about 2 years or so, we were, I would say, almost 100% all word of mouth by referral. We had a stack of our business cards at the lumber desk at our local lumber store. We would get some bites here and there, but for the most part, for the first 2 years, it was just all referral, word of mouth.
We still get clients every now and then from the lumber desk too. They'll say, "We got your card at such and such, gave it to us." I won't say the name of the store, but it's and but I want to say also, like, too, on that point, that getting out there and meeting people. Like, we want to do JLC too, the convention out there in whatever month is the next one is, and
March.
Because I find that in March, and I find that people want to size you up, and that's fine, and that's good. And then I think that a huge part of marketing ourselves is actually talking to them, and them. You can, I almost want to say disarm, because people sort of have their guard up in the beginning, but building that, if you can build that trust face to face, and then they say, okay, in the future, I'll reach out, or I have this job, and they can talk to you face to face, that right there can already plant the seed, and they say, okay, these guys are going to collaborate, they're going to communicate, they do good work, I've seen their portfolio, I've seen reviews. And that right there is kind of enough of a runway to secure, like, more work, because like pictures and online presence and things like that is great, but I think that final like piece is to talk to them, and you just communicate with them, and you say okay, these guys, I can trust what they're going to do, and they're going to collaborate, and they're not going to, be very rigid with me, and they're nice, trustworthy, and you can get that. Most people have kind of an innate, like, ability, even if they don't realize it, to get a read on people when they first meet them. That first impression is important.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, we kind of see it all the time where every contractor has good photos of their work. So how do you differentiate it? Like, you have to inject your personality into your marketing so that they know you, like you, trust you. It's like fundamental. Even if you share an interest, like, sometimes that's a differentiator. If they say, well, if this guy's working in my house, we could talk about basketball every day.
Yep.
Something like that. It's just people work with people.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Very intuitive. It's a funny story about your sign. A couple of weeks ago, my wife picked out to go to an estate sale, which we've never done before, and it was actually like Hopewell Junction over your way.
Oh, nice.
And we said, we'll take back roads to get home, and the direction said go on Freedom Plains Road, and in my head I'm like, why do I know this road name? Why do I know this road name? And then we drove right by your sign.
We drove right past.
Nice.
I know.
Yeah.
I have to. Next upgrade will be getting a sign as big as the one across the street. I don't know if you saw that one, but that one's about 5 times the size of ours.
You're gonna have the Cold War of the billboards.
Yeah.
Got to keep making them bigger and bigger.
Yeah, right.
Well, I'll have to let you guys know. So I met a gentleman based in Connecticut who was supposed to be on the podcast in a future episode. He claims that he originated the yard sign for remodelers. So we'll see if he's willing to talk about that. And he's 77 years old. He's been in the business a long time.
Wow.
And he said, I cracked the code on that, decades ago. So
I was gonna say that sounds far fetched. When you said he's 77 years old, yeah.
I believe
thank you to him.
I believe it.
Yeah, that's great. So just digging in really quick into like some of the digital things that we've done. You guys have done a pretty good job of like getting reviews coming out of like a lot of your clients. Do you find that those come easily? Do you have any sort of like secret sauce that you find gets people to do that? Or was that a leading question that you feel like it's hard to get reviews?
No, I think if you generally, for the most part, if you write like the day you're packing up and leaving, say, hey, I'm going to send you a link, and you just explain a little bit. If you could, leave us a little review, because the hope is at that point they're very happy, and just like all of us three here, we've been chatting and common interests, and we've made a personal connection by that point. Usually people, are like, yeah, definitely, we'll do that. And then if you strike while the iron's hot, you do it right on that last day or very soon after. Usually people are willing to do it. And I know sometimes people are busy and it can fall through the cracks. But even later on, you can reach back out and just say, hey, if you guys could leave that review for us or whatever, BS with them a little bit. Hey, how you doing? How's everything? Make sure they're happy still, because that's another big part of it too. How's the shower holding up? How do you guys liking the countertops? Whatever it was, and then send them the link. And usually people are happy to do it as long as they're satisfied with the job. I don't know if you have anything to add, Jesse.
Yeah, no, it's been pretty. Honestly, haven't really had an issue. Like I was saying, most of the time we'll send it right at the end of the job. Right as we're kind of maybe the last day or two, maybe not right when we're leaving, just so that way we can kind of show face again. But we've had clients that they ended up leaving a review months later. And that's just everyone's schedule is different and stuff like that. So I understand people forget about things, but for the most part, it's been pretty straightforward in terms of getting reviews from past clients and stuff.
I heard a colleague of mine say recently, basically just the funny phenomenon of a GC could be in business for 30 years, but they haven't gotten reviews along the way. So like according to the internet, they're like spring chicken. Like they haven't done any work, even though they've been doing it for 30, 40 years. And then a company that has only been in business a few years, but has hammered out reviews to the stranger, they say, well, I want to go with that company because like lots of people are vouching for them. So it's almost like in web design, as an example, there's a concept of like mobile first, where if you know that most of the people are going to use the phone as a device to access the website, then you kind of prioritize that. You design for the phone. But if you're a GC and you're digital first, the world's not going to become less digital. So even though much of construction is dealt arm's length, sales, business development, the next generation of people are going to be looking at those Google reviews, absolutely, and saying, well, these guys are 5 stars, they have 50 reviews, like good enough.
Yep.
And we've been experiencing now, it's starting to trickle in and happen where people will mention the reviews and they'll say, oh, we saw you guys have a bunch of good reviews and praising your work and things like that. And they'll just kind of throw it in there, and it's a great like confidence booster for us, but it's also confidence for that person or that potential client, that they're like, chances are, in their head, they're thinking, okay, chances are I'm not going to be the first person that they screw over or they do a terrible job at. They have all these other people praising their work, and not only their work, but their, like I was been saying, their communication and stuff like that. And I found that that's a really big, important thing. And they'll go, okay, I'm probably not going to be the first person that they're going to screw over, or not have these good, they're not going to, show these good qualities on my job site,
Yeah, I agree.
Now you mentioned, oh, sorry, were you going to speak, Justin?
No, I was just agreeing with everything he said, basically.
Yeah. You mentioned previously DBS, which for listeners not familiar, DBS is another large design and build in the Poughkeepsie market. You collaborate with them even just sort of professionally to communicate. Have they been kind of like a mentoring capacity for you guys?
We honestly only met and chatted with the owner Brian at the Poughkeepsie Home Show where we actually met you. But we chatted with him the first day, and then he made the point to come back and kind of check in on us, and um, you know, not to like size up competition or anything, because I don't think that we're kind of in their realm yet. They've been in business for longer than I've been alive for. But anyway, Brian, he gave us some really good advice. He asked us, how many leads we got, just kind of, they're almost checking in on us to seeing how, like the young guns are doing, I guess. He gave us his card, and, he offered, if we ever wanted to call him and ask for advice, we could do that. But I'll be honest, we haven't done it.
But they're one of the companies. There's companies that Jesse and I will kind of discuss, and we admire them from afar, and we try to emulate certain aspects, and that's one of them. And another company is Tekra, Dan Arquette, and that's one of Jesse's and mine. Jesse went to school with him, I think, but that's another guy who's just a great guy running a really clean business, a good doing amazing work, and we want to be on that same level as them, that same plane, and with Brian at DBS, we just had a great chat with him, and he was kind of talking, and he gave us a lot of good pointers that I think about all the time, a lot of things that he just said.
Yeah.
Because a lot of I was saying before, it's sometimes you get imposter syndrome. You're are we really good at this, or are we just getting lucky? And I think as time is going on, we're finding that we're doing some things right, hopefully most things right, and it's because we're trying to really emulate some of these businesses that we see out there that have been in business a long time, and they're have a really good reputation, and that's what we want. And that's why ideal clients and things like that are so crucial, because we wouldn't want to risk tarnishing that reputation that we're building, because we definitely are building a reputation, and we don't want to risk ever losing momentum because of some farce or something that we may have not had much control over, or an unpleasable client, because me and Jesse basically walk away every day knowing we did the best we can, and we go to lengths to satisfy people, because it's their home and it's their personal space, and they got to look at it forever. So when somebody's we're dealing with something right now on a job, and we're spending a couple of days, man, on something that was essentially already done, and we're just trying to tweak it, and we're just trying to get things right for the client, and they've been a great customer, and what we never want to do is try to convince them that this is good enough. No, just be happy with this, because it's never going to there's always a solution. That's kind of what we try to live by. And Brian told us that that all has to go into our contracts and our pricing, and it's all got to be part of the formula. We need to account for the potential to be redos and changes. Obviously a work change order is one thing, but kind of things that you may need to tweak for the client, so they can have kind of lasting satisfaction. And we can get that review, and we can keep the momentum, and maybe get another referral out of them,
Yep. Yeah. And honestly, everything you said was pretty much spot on. It's I look at it as what's more important in the long run, that, you know, that few extra dollars and, finishing the job, 2 days early, or making sure that this client is, absolutely 100% satisfied with what they're, getting. Because, a lot of our services, they're not cheap, stuff is expensive, materials are expensive.
And it's only getting more expensive.
Yeah, everything's getting more expensive. So, if we have to, you know, spend a little extra money out of our budget to, make sure that the, client is satisfied, then, that's what we do. The client's, the most important, in this whole scenario, it's not up to us whether or not, this is how they want their floor to look. It's up to them. They've invited us into their home. We're there as guests to do, a service for them, so we need to make sure that it's 100%, complete, and they're satisfied, and they're, not gonna, go and, spew to their neighbor that, these guys, did a great job, but I didn't get exactly what I wanted. Some people might take that the wrong way, some people might not, but we just don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Targeting in on kind of one of your projects that I know we featured a lot on your socials were the cabins that you guys did in the Catskills. And I know that those ash trees that were milled on the property, did you guys cut the trees down? Did you do the milling, or what point did you enter into utilizing that product?
We didn't do the actual milling. We didn't run the sawmill.
Okay.
That was the client themselves, and they just opted to do that. But we basically came in with freshly cut lumber, essentially, and it's a lot different from store-bought materials. Old growth. There's different moisture content in the wood, and a lot of different limitations, with working with that material. So it was a learning curve for us, but thankfully Jesse and I are very interested in that type of thing, and we're up for the challenge, and that's where that satisfaction comes in. And that was a long project, that one. And yeah, it's been a great photo op, great for the socials and stuff like that. Gave us a lot of content and a lot of experience. Because Jesse and I were talking about it in the beginning, some contractors may go their whole life never getting that opportunity to, to work with a tree from the property, and, dimensioning it. First of all, moving it to where it needs to be was half the battle.
Yeah.
You're lugging giant 16-foot, massive 4x10 or whatever crazy beams through the woods, and then you gotta dimension it, plane it, and then do what you do with it. And that's when the regular carpentry comes in, and that stuff is hard. That ash wood. It's breaking drill bits, breaking screws, but it was fun. Not to mention the mosquitoes and the snow.
Oh yeah,
we were from snow to mosquitoes, so we were full snow gear all the way through mosquitoes and ticks, and then back to snow again, just about.
Yeah. It was that one was a definitely a good learning experience, very interesting, certainly a very niche type project that, probably, be very rare if we encounter another client that is doing something as similar to that.
What's that wood called? What's that called? Shuggy ban when you burn it and then do
they show
shugi ban, I think it's
something
called.
like that. It's some Japanese technique where they burn the very outer layer, and it gives it some weather resistant properties or something of that nature, and it also just looks black. Yeah. So it's it also has that kind of moody look that some people like.
And I think what differentiates you guys from a lot of other contractors who might be shy to get in front of the camera when the work is not finished is that you guys show the process. Like we did multiple time lapse photos of you guys planing those ash boards and showing like the meticulous nature of the joinery that you're doing, which again, when a lot of contractors show 30,000 foot views of like nice kitchen, nice bath, that is basically like any other nice kitchen and a nice bath, you guys are kind of zooming in and saying like, here's how we tongue and groove this, and here's how we mitered these joints. I mean, it's a testament to the craftsmanship that I think also sets you apart. And I think we had discussed, you guys have done restoration carpentry, historically oriented restoration carpentry. And so by highlighting that, like you've been getting interest, at least like from people checking out your site, specifically looking for that. So it's great that you're willing to take on these kind of adventurous projects because they do lead to bigger opportunities.
Yeah. I think that I like showing that stuff. I know Jesse agrees with this because we're so interested. Like our wives always talk about it all the time. Like get us in an old building and we're up close and personal, looking at walls, looking at wood, looking at trim, looking at railings, looking at stairs. How'd they do this? How'd they do that? It's like archaeology or like reverse engineering.
It's funny you mentioned that because I was actually just 2 weeks ago. I was in Newport, Rhode Island, and we were touring all those like massive Gilded Age mansions. Like ones built by
Vanderbilts,
and like their relatives, and like one of the homes was the guy who basically supplied the Vanderbilts with all the coal for all the railways. So anyway, these houses were all built, the Gilded Age was what, like 1860, 1870 to like 1900 or something like that. And, of course, a lot of the material in there is a lot of like, African marble and all these crazy high materials that, normal people, would not line their walls with. But anyway, walking through the rooms that had, some beautiful like wainscoting and stuff like that. Like, I'm all up close, like inches away, looking at everything. They had a couple rooms and a couple houses where they were doing some restoration work on, some stuff, and I was able to kind of see like the construction of like how they, had to build out, like fur out, like the stone walls basically to have something to basically mount and fasten all the wainscoting to, like, and it was just really cool to like see like all this carpentry, like super tight miters, like these insane wood carvings made out of single pieces of walnut. It's like, and I'm just like, my mouth is, I'm like in there drooling. My wife is like, she's like, come on, like, and I'm like sitting there just looking at everything and just like, my head's up like this and I'm looking around and it's just like, it's just insane. Yeah, it's just I'm just so, it's a problem, as my wife would probably say. She's
Great. It's like my wife nags on me because I'm always looking for like bird cover for hunting my dogs.
See, everybody has their things that they're just like, or like me, for example, like if I like, I'm a big car guy too. So if I'll see a car that I like, I'll literally turn the radio down, open the window so I can hear the car drive by. And my wife's looking at me like I'm, in a freaking psych ward or something. I'm like, what?
You guys mentioned something I think on a previous call that I thought was really interesting and I wanted to bring up. You talked earlier on this episode about home shows, and if I'm getting this right, you guys said that so that home show I think was April, and when we talked in November, you said that you were still sort of courting those same leads of people that expressed interest in April. Is that the case, and can you kind of comment on like how those conversations are going, sort of 7 months later?
Yeah, so we've kept contact with a couple people, people who ended up either, just never really, actually, wanting the work done or to come look at it. But actually, we're actually just pretty much on the very, very end of a job for a client who we actually met at the home show.
And she gave us a referral, which Jesse just looked at today. And it's like a 5-star opportunity. It's very likely. Jesse went out and sold that one, and that was a referral from these people because they were so happy with the work. And that'll be we've got some of that content on the Google Drive, and we'll get the last final look at that pretty soon.
Yep. We're just waiting for the countertop install in the kitchen and the doors to come in. The final 2 little things there, but hoping to get the countertop installed before Christmas.
So the lesson for listeners, that was 7 months of keeping in touch with that person and following up. What did that follow-up process look like? Was it phone calls, texts, emails? Like, how did you kind of like keep it warm?
So with this specific client who I just mentioned, like you said, the home show was in April. And maybe a week or so after the home show, Art and I sat down with all the leads that we got and, just made a call saying like, hey, this is, Jess and Art from Chiusano Design Build. We had met at the home show. We're just, following up, based off of, XYZ, whatever they had written on our contact form. And then this specific client had reached out. Maybe, after that call, they had reached out to us maybe about a month after, and it was essentially a big process from like collaboration with like the whole, their design and stuff like that from, say June to July, and then we kind of had everything locked in, and then we didn't start that job until beginning of November. So it was kind of like we were essentially in contact with them, for roughly 5-6 months from the point the home show was up till we actually started the work on their house, and they've been sharing all of their experience with us, with all of their friends and stuff like that. She's been, very happy, with everything so far, and that was all due to the home show.
An ideal client too.
An ideal client, yep, and an ideal client. She appreciated all the suggestions and trusted that we were the professionals in this in the situation.
And baked us fresh bread weekly. And I want to say one more thing.
I will say that too.
What secured that for us, that job, was when what are they called? Not recommendations. I'm drawing a blank because I'm on the spot. References. So when we gave her a reference list, she was very close acquaintance with someone who we happened to put on our reference list. And she said, oh, such and such, and he does this at the function every year that we have for our church, whatever it was. And he gave us a very good recommendation. And he said, yeah, the guys are great. I was very happy. We had actually done a couple of jobs for him at that point. And so it's just, that's how it's all connected, and keep making sure every time we walk off someone's site for the last time, there's nothing that was kind of left open-ended. We say, okay, I hope they don't stare at that forever and end up hating it and end up resenting us, and then tell the next person, yeah, they did all right, like Jesse said, but there's this thing I hate forever, and that wasn't the case. So it's like it all comes full circle. It's all mixed, all of the different marketing mix type of thing, and personal reviews, compliment. the digital complement the home shows and the boots on the ground and stuff.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, I think we try and position ourselves as a partner that is long term, and as much as it might seem boring about us, kind of like the diet and exercise.
Yeah.
People want to get fit, they want to lose weight, they want to do it overnight. It's like, nope, you got to just show up and you got to just keep chipping away.
Right.
You gotta put the work in.
Yeah, I mean that's 6 months that you nurtured that client and that job, and then you got a quick job right out of it with a good referral. You know, like that turned into it, and so maybe that turns into 3, and you basically just snowball it. As long as, like you said, you met them at a show, you marketed to them through email, through text, through calls. Maybe they saw your socials. Like basically, you just keep pushing the ball. Is that
and that was the second job that we had completed from the home show.
That's right. We did.
And I don't want to give any listener that the impression is we got 25 names and numbers and emails and potential projects on our contact sheets. So it's not, we got a lot of no's, or a lot of maybes, or a lot of, yeah, maybe I'll call you guys in the future. But it's still worth it when you get those couple of yeses. So that's why like the lead funnel is so important. And that's kind of what we're lacking before we met you, was the lead funnel. And we see it really picking up steam these past few months.
Fantastic. Yeah, and we talked previously, we're going to be rolling out sort of like lead funnel 2.0 so that we start automating a lot of that follow-up for you guys. So,
awesome.
Staying right on top of it.
I like it.
Now, are there any particular services that you found in the past year where maybe you say like, this is my most profitable, so we want to lean into that, or this is like a great new thing, a new opportunity that you feel like you want to sort of like do more of that in the future that you want to highlight?
I mean, I know Art and I have talked about, we want, like the biggest thing is we always said like, okay, like we want to, be, doing, like a full client calling us up and basically being like, hey, like I want you guys to do, my bathroom, for example, and, they call us up, having maybe done a little bit of research online and like seeing some stuff about us and whatnot, and just kind of like knowing what to expect, really, because we've run into a couple issues, not issues, I would say issues, but clients asking for certain things and just not having done even like a little bit of like prior research just to see like what things cost and like what they're kind of asking for,
And I'll say too, like a particular service that we want to lean into more is the design aspect of things too.
Yeah.
So like that the qualifying has become so important, because sticker shock is real, and we want people to know that, I think what Jess was trying to say is that people will sometimes have, for lack of a better word, extravagant ideas or complex ideas, which is cool. But to execute things like that, properly takes skill and experience, which is what we offer, and obviously
and a lot of planning.
And a lot of planning. And besides that, another thing that we want to, as far as the design is concerned, is I think we're going to see a shift towards smaller home builds too, full builds but smaller. And because the house is the pinnacle of all that, what I just said. It's like, not knowing, you want to build a house. And first of all, it's two pieces to that. I mean, we're a small outfit. It's generally Jesse and I, and then some subcontracted work. And maybe a laborer to dig holes, sometimes. So to continue to grow on our end, we have to find an underserved niche. And what we're finding is that there's a lot of people out there who have ideas, but they cannot find a contractor who's willing to collaborate with them and kind of that's within their limitations so they can get to the end product that they want. Like we're working with a client right now. We're in the planning stage, and it's going to be essentially a tiny home build. But there's a lot of plans out there. This is where the young, technologically savvy client, an ideal client for us, comes in. There's a ton of plans out there on Etsy. There's a ton of plans for homes you can find in different places. Obviously, it all needs to be qualified and stamped and approved by a town, an architect, yada yada. But a lot of the bigger, good old boys are not willing to. They're not willing to take you there. And of course, there's pre-construction contracts and things like that. We need to be compensated for our time in the meantime before we swing hammers. But I think it's an underserved market, and with the economy and the housing market the way it is, I feel like I feel like it's underserved right now, and it's just gonna continue. That gap is gonna continue to widen because you got big tract home builders, the Toll Brothers of the world, and
all the developers
and custom home builders, and that's awesome. That's I love that. We're not there. We don't have the infrastructure, but it's perfect because there's a whole subset of customers out there who they have ideas and they want to do stuff, but they're going to get brushed off by 9 out of 10 big contractors with the knowledge and the expertise to get it done for them. So I think that's kind of where we're driving it. And in the meantime, we love niche carpentry.
Yep. And to add to that, Art, what you're saying, basically, in super short form, we want people. The ideal lead flow, that we would like to see, is having people that are coming to us and be like, "Hey, I want X, Y, Z," but we essentially handle everything from doing the planning, design. We have an in-house designer. We have another designer who we work with on the side for kitchens and stuff like that.
We have an
architects
network
and stuff like that. But people who want, I guess, quote unquote, a more unique, personalized, bathroom, for example, and not just something where you can drive down to your local big box store and like, oh, I like that flooring, and you just pull it all off the shelf, and then you might go to your neighbor's house who has the same flooring, we want to kind of we want people who want unique, personalized, to fit who they are, and not just I wouldn't say easily obtainable things, like buying, flooring and finishes from the big box stores, because that's fine. Trying to lean more into, the more unique, personalized, stuff. Really people who, see our reviews, see our stuff online and be like, okay, these are the guys who I trust, who I want to basically be like, okay, this is what I want. And then we basically handle everything. And it's, very personalized to that, specific client. That's the ideal lead flow, I would say.
Have you guys, you brought up kind of Etsy and these younger clients coming to you with digital assets in hand, or being willing to kind of explore some of the more collaborative design resources. Have you had any clients, I guess, present anything AI generated with you, or I was playing around with actually AI with a bathroom renovation, and I uploaded pictures of my old bathroom and said, "What do you recommend I do?" And it basically gave me 3 options of project plans.
So what I'll say to that is we haven't had any clients come to us, and if they have, it's been a really good. I mean, half the stuff on Pinterest, it could be AI generated. I don't know. It's hard to tell, but I will say that there's so many tools out there for us on our end. And I think you're going to fall behind if you don't learn to leverage those things. So there's ways. Everything needs to be checked and quality controlled by human eyes, but there's a lot of ways that certain AI programs and stuff like that can be leveraged to help
Sure.
Us and to help the customer and to kind of move things forward, because that's just the way it is. The tools are there, we might as well use them. And every other industry is using them. You don't hear a lot about it in the construction industry, the light construction industry.
Yep. And also too, like think about, like an AI rendering versus like a rendering for an example that you would get from like say like a kitchen designer. What's the only real difference is one is someone actually, physically making the rendering with the software that they have versus, just prompting, you basically have a picture of, of like the space, and you could essentially say what you want to do.
It's a time saver, because if we can come back with ideas for the client, they're sending us ideas. We can say, okay, what about this? It's a time saver, because that's another thing that's really important with turning lead to to a sold job, is the back and forth needs to flow smoothly, needs to be quick. The communication needs to be done quickly. So they're just tools, they might as well use them. And unfortunately, maybe some jobs eventually will be lost. But we're not in the business of saving jobs, and that's just the way the world is going.
Yeah, agreed.
Very nice. That's so we're coming up to an hour. We're called the Topping Off Podcast, so I don't know if you're as familiar with it doing residential construction, but the idea of topping off is basically like a celebration when the structure has been placed. Do you guys have any kind of ceremony or celebration that you do as kind of like a tradition when you reach that point on a project?
We do a lot of standing and staring.
Yeah.
And a lot of fist bumps.
Dude, usually at the very end of the job, it's like I was saying, a lot of standing and staring, and then we call the client down, and then we do some more standing and staring, but with the client.
Yeah.
And then we start to walk towards the door, and then we walk back, look at it one more time, and then we leave.
Yeah. A lot of appreciating. No set ceremony, but we love it,
That's
we
awesome.
love it. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, guys, really appreciate the time. You really dropped some wonderful nuggets of advice for people who are up and coming in the design build industry, and then also, generational knowledge of older professionals who maybe aren't leveraging some of the digital things that you guys have embraced. So thank you. I'm absolutely grateful for the partnership that we have together, and hope that this is a huge benefit for our listeners. So thank you guys again.
Thanks, Kevin. We appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having us.